Welcome to the fourth episode in our Design for Advantage podcast series with Rafael. In our last episode, we explored how navies are adapting to asymmetric threats at sea. Today, we're heading to the tactical front line and looking at how loitering munitions are transforming land warfare. I'm joined by Gideon Weiss, Rafael's VP of Business Development and Marketing, and Brigadier General L, a land warfare expert and Business Development Manager with Rafael. Gentlemen, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Tony. It's a pleasure to be here with you again.
So, in this episode, we will explore how loitering munitions are helping forces to dominate in disrupted, unpredictable battle spaces, from providing real-time ISR to an almost on-demand strike capability. So, Gideon, the rise of loitering munitions, the rise of autonomy, has been a remarkable story over the past 10 years or more. But let's start at the big picture level. How are loitering systems changing the way modern ground forces think about tactical precision strike?
Hi, Tony. I think when we look at the changing market, we need to differentiate between the loitering munitions and all kinds of drones and long-range UAVs that are sometimes being mistaken as the same. There are many types of UAVs and drones that are now being used. We can see that in the Middle East. We see that in large numbers in Ukraine and the war between Russia and Ukraine. And when we look at where we want to focus on today is on how loitering munitions are a little different than that. It's a little bit more complex. It is where we want to not just have quantities and low prices of these drones that sometimes are perceived as an easy weaponized device, but we want to see more precision. We want to see more effectiveness in the battlefield so that we can use less, that we can use them faster, and that we can use them in combination and everything else that we have in the battlefield. So it would be artillery, it would be missiles, it would be air-to-surface weapons, and it would be the combination of how we combine loitering munitions with everything else that we have. And what we need to think about is not everyone knows that Rafael has been in this business of loitering munitions for over 20 years. And so we cannot talk about all of these capabilities and all of our systems that we have deployed and fielded with many of our customers. But it is important to mention that we're coming in with a lot of expertise that are based not just on our customer base, but also on our technologies and our availability of technologies that we can offer our customers.
And then, Brigadier General L, what are some of the biggest challenges that loitering systems need to overcome in order to be effective in real-world combat?
Hi, Tony. So I can say that we understand that loitering munitions are much more complicated to operate comparing to missiles, point-to-point missiles. As of when we look at a missile, we know the launching position and we know the coordinates of the target. So when we speak of electro-optical munitions, I won't say there are no surprises, but we know what to expect. And when we look at loitering munitions, the munition covers a much bigger area and the duration of the mission is longer. And taking into account that we want to operate a couple of munitions at the same time, this is becoming more complex. And our approach is how to make things simple. What we're doing is we're integrating AI technologies and software to do that. And the second thing I'll mention as a challenge is that when we look under the assumption that we will work in GPS-denied areas, electric warfare jammed environments will work under these as well. The duration of the missile is much more challenging. So these are probably the main two challenges I'd mention at first.
And maybe just to jump in here with Brigadier General L, I think that when we look at the big picture of the war in the Middle East and the war in Ukraine, we certainly see that the new battle space will continue to be challenging. There's a lot of EW, so electronic warfare, GPS denial, communications blockage. The freedom of operation is very impacted by these countermeasures from the enemy. And so what Brigadier General L is saying is very much true and behooves very sophisticated tools in the hands of the operator to simplify their mission, because those missions require more time.
So, yeah, I guess we've touched on it there already, but I sort of wanted to dive into a little bit the kind of equation around cost and mission effectiveness. How do loitering systems compare to more traditional approaches, using regular missiles?
Well, maybe first of all, let's look at the perception in Ukraine. I think when one looks at the sheer numbers of drones and UAVs employed by both the Ukrainians as well as by the Russians, these numbers are in the thousands, sometimes in the tens of the thousands over a period of 1 year. And then you look at the effectiveness of these weapons. Well, they're not so effective. So I think that is something that we don't just need to look at the numbers, but how effective those are and how long will it take for an operator to put it in theater and complete a mission in a good way. So I think I want to hand over to Brigadier General L to speak about this new concept that Rafael is very much advanced in the sense that you have already missiles, you have already guided missiles, you have artillery means, but how do you perfect them and how do you work with loitering munitions with them in those austere environments?
Referring to what Gidi just mentioned, when we speak about effectiveness, I think we should speak about two major things. The first one is reliability, and this relates to the cost. We speak more and more about kill cost, munition cost. The more reliable the munitions are, then the less munitions we need to execute a mission. And the second thing is the hit rate. I mean, we want definitely the operational challenge is going to be mass fires and how do we execute a large number of targets in a short time. And when we want to do that, our approach is more autonomous, but always keep human in the loop that will make the final decision.
Let's talk about autonomy for a second. I think it is something that a lot of people are afraid of, especially when that autonomy is supported by artificial intelligence. Our approach at Rafael is not to have robotic systems, not to use AI as robotic systems, but to use the artificial intelligence and the autonomy given to the systems in certain areas only. And those certain areas would provide the alleviation, the reduction of the workload to the operator so that the operator will have a better situational awareness of where his weapon or her weapons are, where the battlefield is and what is the relation between the mission set and what they want to achieve. It's the situational awareness. It's the understanding of what the weapon is doing and what the enemy is doing. And it's not so much the autonomy to execute the mission end to end. That is a very big distinction that we want to make here in terms of autonomy.
I'd say that what we're aiming is to lower the cognitive workload on the operator. This is, I think, the main challenge we have as developers of the system.
Yeah, that's a really good point to make. A lot of the coverage around loitering systems is obviously that question around autonomy. Really interesting to point out that there's always a human in the loop, and what autonomy is doing is making that operator's life a lot easier. I wanted gentlemen just to dive in, give you a chance to outline the company's loitering family. And we talked about at the top end around how you've been in the business for sort of more than 20 years. Could you give us a sense for what's available now in terms of what systems are on offer, and then what new capabilities are being introduced as you kind of develop these systems further?
Sure. So I think one thing to remember when thinking about these capabilities is the fact that we in Rafael and certainly in Israel, we don't control GPS. We don't have our own GPS. So that in order to navigate, in order to identify a target and attract a target from the beginning, what we need to do is rely not on GPS, because we can rely on the fact that the enemy will have GPS denial capabilities against us, countermeasures. But what we need to do is rely on electro-optic capabilities to complete the mission. EOIR. So the electro-optic capabilities allow us in our systems to have these systems as navigation system, relying on EOIR, to acquire the target, and then to have the operator in the loop to assist with decision-making processes that are required during the mission. For example, if you have an EOIR in real time and you have visual of the target, you can decide if you want to pursue this target or another, if you want to refine the aim point over that target, or if all of a sudden you want to abort the mission because you can identify unidentified people or you think that people are uninvolved. In fact, Israel is the only country on earth that has multitude of EOIR and other weapons that are only used for certain capabilities with the intent to avoid collateral damage, with the intent to be precise, but to avoid collateral damage at all costs. So the electro-optic capability in a human in the loop is really part of that. In that realm of having electro-optic in the loop, we have for over 20 years the Spike family. So the Spike family missiles is something everyone understands. The short-range Firefly, Spike Firefly, is about for 5 kilometers. It's for infantry. It's for the organic force. And the new Spike member that we are now introducing to the market is called L Spike. It's the Loitering Spike. And we're now introducing a family of those, but the first family member is for 40-kilometer loitering precision missiles. So you have the abilities to have the rapid response of a missile, a very fast-flying loitering, but then the ability to loiter around the target and operate in an uncertainty area. We know that engagements in the current battlefields for ground forces are required to cover between 0 to 150 kilometers. That's a very wide range. So we understand that we need to come in with a family of these systems, not just one variant for here or for there. And it needs to integrate with existing launcher systems and with existing fire capabilities that our customers may have. Maybe I'll hand it over to Brigadier General L to kind of explain how that could work in a concept of operation and create concept of operations that can require the utility of both of these capabilities.
I'll just add to that we understood that there is a need for both, for missiles and loitering munitions. And one of the reasons we're using our launchers and developing loitering munitions that will be launched from the Spike NLOS launchers and the Spike LO2 launchers is because we want to enable our user to use both depending on the operational needs. Once we want to reach speed and we have certainty of the mission, we'll use more and more missiles, point-to-point missiles. Once we have uncertainty and we want much more flexibility, we'll use loitering munition from the same launcher.
So, Brigadier General L, you've mentioned there that loitering systems can complement traditional missiles, and we've talked about this already around striking that balance. But I guess I'm curious around what's the differentiator for, why a loitering munition would be chosen, over a traditional approach.
First of all, as I mentioned before, we understand that there is a need for both, for missiles, point-to-point missiles, and loitering munitions. And when we do that, I'd like to mention that in loitering munitions, we divide them into 2 groups. The bigger group is what we call platform-based DNA loitering munitions. And that means we're taking a UAV or a drone, integrating a warhead, and making it a loitering munition. As of the other group, which I think is the smaller one, and the one that we're developing, is the missile-based DNA. It means we're taking the missile systems, the missiles, Spike missiles we've developed on the last 40 years, and we're integrating into them loitering capabilities. The main difference would be the maneuverability of the loitering munition, the speed, and the advanced homing capability. So when we speak about moving targets, you will see that the hit probability in the missile-based DNA munition is much higher. And more than that, all of our loitering munitions will be compatible to our launchers. And that compatibility is very important because every user in the world that has either Spike LO2 launcher, and we have thousands of them, or Spike NLOS launchers, will be able to use them actually both. So the training will be the same, the infrastructure will be the same, the launchers are the same. So the implementation of the system will be much more simpler than that.
Maybe we can add a point of the CONOPS and how that is applicable, Tony, in the sense that we see that the modern battlefield, both in the Middle East, but maybe more so in the battle between Ukraine and Russia, is that of a lot of uncertainty. And when you have a lot of uncertainty, it is very hard to control the battlefield in a single point of command. And you want to be able to have a distributed force. When you apply distributed force, and every platoon or every battalion will have their own missile system, will have their own loitering munition, and the combination of between them, they will be much more flexible in controlling their own uncertainty area and being able to respond better to combat situations in need of fire and call for fire.
That's a great point, that being designed for uncertainty is a really interesting concept. Brigadier General L, I mean, this has been a really fascinating conversation. Could you provide any more detail around just where this technology is evolving, just how the technology will evolve, and what the company's got planned in terms of the evolution, of the loitering munition family?
So when we look at loitering munitions, first of all, time now, by the end of this year, loitering spike family, L spike family actually, are going to have 3 members, from Firefly, the short range of 5 kilometers, to the short range loitering munitions for around 20 kilometers with anti-tank warhead. And next month, we're launching the L spike for 40 kilometers. We'll have all that by the end of this year. But looking into the future, we understand that there is a need for multiple strikes, and there is a need to move from 1-to-1 in terms of launcher to missile. We want to move from 1-to-1 to 1-to-many, and then to swarms. We want to enhance the ranges as much as we can. We understand that there is a need for target engagement of up to 150 kilometers. We understand this is the need, so this is a roadmap. And we want to do all that and be able to overcome the electrical warfare jamming and the GPS denied area, because we understand that this challenge is going to be higher and higher into the next years.
So as we go to the future, I think before we head to the future, I think one of the major things is on our focus is to provide capabilities today, to be available, to say that we can support our customers' needs today and not only to the far future, but into the very near future. So the distinguishing factor for us at Rafael is to be able to support missions that are more effective, that the loitering systems that we offer are faster, are more similar in their operation and in their speed to missiles, but they solve the uncertainty area, the uncertainty in the battlefield, and they provide with a faster time to target, a bigger warhead, and a more effective and reliable mission set, so that your mission is more successful. That's where we want to go in here. And then in the future, of course, we want to reinforce what Brigadier General L said in terms of the ability to do many one-to-many and many-to-many in swarms.
Gideon, I'd sort of like to, what's kind of been traditional for these podcasts, to give you a chance to wrap up with kind of the 2 key things that defense leaders should take away from today's conversation. What are those 2 things in terms of the loitering munitions question?
I think the number 1 question is about perception, and number 2 is mission success. The perception is that loitering munitions and drones are kind of one, and it's not really the same. The perception has become thus because of the fact that the threshold, the technological threshold, and entering the point of the ability for new manufacturing or even civilian manufacturers to create what Brigadier General L said as Category 1 is taking a platform and weaponizing it and say, hey, I got a loitering munition here for you. That is a perception issue here. And that is something that people can use. People can actually maybe have utility in that. But we see the sheer numbers, especially in the war between Ukraine and Russia. In many missions, it's in the single digits of success rate. It could be 30% in some cases, but in other cases and in certainly in austere environments, it's single digits that many of these drones just go away, they fall off, they're not reliable, and they cannot complete their missions. And therefore, we come back to the mission success. If you want to have mission success, you want to have something that is not necessarily the cost per the unit, but the cost per the mission. So if you need to deploy, let's say 10 to 20 drones, that each and every one of them will only cost you maybe $1,000 or $2,000, but you're ending up spending $30,000 on a single mission, Weiss taking a single loitering munition that is much more reliable that you can apply, and that one costs you that $30,000 as just as an example, then you might as well rethink what you want to do in terms of getting that success rate to your forces and that ability to be compatible to what you already have, to have the loitering capabilities resolve the problem of the uncertainty in your battlefield, but then make everything else applicable and everything else that you have in your firepower be applicable and be contributing to the success of your mission.
That's a great note to end things on. That's all for this episode of Design for Advantage with Rafael. We've explored how loitering munitions are delivering faster, smarter, and more precise tactical strike capabilities, especially in environments where speed, ISR, and autonomy make a real difference. A big thank you to our guests, Gideon Weiss and Brigadier General L. Gentlemen, thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much, Tony.
Thank you.
And listeners, if you missed earlier episodes, be sure to check out our previous podcasts where we cover operational laser development, precision strike munitions, and the latest in naval air defense. Until then, thanks for listening.